3, 2, 1, clap.
All right, that works.
Awesome.
Hey everybody,
All right,
and welcome. Never mind.
Sorry, I was just about to say who's starting it this week.
Oh, if somebody else wants to start it, we can do that.
Duffy, you have a go at it.
Okay. Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome back to the Power of God and Anime. And I am not your main host, but I'm, a host, John Duffy. And, yeah, Steven, Gary, Maine.
Yep. Steven, Gary, and Maine, we're all here.
The gang's all here this week.
You might notice no video this week, and I think that's for the better, because no one wants to watch Steven's face for longer than they have to.
Oh, come on.
That's the whole reason we started putting those little illustrations of you on the videos, right?
This is fair. It also saves me from having to shave all the time.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, I was gonna shave, but I thought, wait, I don't have to. This is wonderful. Let this.
So,
Gary, you wouldn't have shaved if you had to. Just keep growing that majestic beard of yours.
Gary's rocking one of those reformed beards.
Oh, I have to.
All right, so this week we are talking about Death Note, right? That's what we're talking about?
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. So I am going to let you guys lead this one because I have things to say, but I don't have a lot to say about Death Note, so I'm going to play off you guys this week for conversation stuff. So whoever wants to take some, if they feel really strongly about Death Note, take it away.
I think the big moral takeaway from that show is that all of mankind is evil.
Okay.
Because if you're given any sort of power, anyone that in that show that has enough power to not be responsible for their actions, whether it's Kira, L, Nier, or what's his name, Mello? Right? That's the other dude?
I really don't like the substitute characters they pop in at the end.
But if
so much.
If they've got enough power to not be held accountable for their actions, they just don't care about whether or not what they're doing is right. They just want to do what they want to do. Whether it's Light killing everybody he thinks is worthy of death, or L holding people he has no evidence is guilty hostage for months. Sensory deprivation on that girl, and just everyone's just downright evil.
Yeah. I can see where you're coming from, but also I don't feel like putting it as humanity is born evil is the right way to go about it. I feel more it's we are raised in an evil world, and therefore we learn that we have to be evil to survive, kind of thing. Now, there is the thing where every man is born with the ability to sin after the whole Garden of Eden thing. But I don't feel like saying, yeah, exactly. I don't feel like saying, humanity itself is born evil. It's just we learn that's the easiest way to go about doing things.
I've been raising a kid from scratch for 4 years now, and I beg to differ.
Yeah, I mean,
hey, don't speak ill about your children. That's bad. Don't do that.
So I mean, I think that in some ways you're right in the sense that it's difficult to learn morality because you have to learn morality from interacting with people and whatnot, and the people that we see that really exemplify that lack of morality later on, L, Light, and all the people that we're talking about, Nier or whatever, they are all exemplary people, like very, very intelligent, and they have access to a lot of resources and a lot of power, and they don't grow up in the same way that normal people grow up, interacting with other people and learning what causes harm to themselves when interacting with people. So, like, if you're really, really strong or really, really smart, and you can somehow avoid the negative consequences of treating people badly, you don't really learn morality. If that makes sense. So, like, so they start off in a sense where they have to if you want to say that people are bad in the sense that they want things and don't care how they get them, yeah, that's how we start out. And so if we don't learn through the process of interacting with other human beings that will end up hurting us, then we end up in a situation where...
Yeah, but that pretty much proves my point, though. Fundamentally, from the birth, people are born sinners. We're born evil. But we learn through as long as we have the right kind of upbringing, we learn how to be moral. Whether it's to appease our parents or just get by in life, because being, a creep or a jerk doesn't usually play out well for everybody.
Yeah, and I wasn't disagreeing with you.
Right.
So when it comes to, I don't want to get too deep into this because this topic could go on forever.
It's okay.
When it comes to younger kids, especially since they don't know what's morally right or wrong until they're told, does it like in a general broad scope of things, does it count as a sin if the child has no, like, even Jesus said, child are innocent.
Sure.
They don't know what's right and what's wrong.
Sure.
So if they do something that's wrong and they never know about it, is it actually a sin?
No, I get what you're saying in that, and I think it's difficult. You can't, like, point at a baby and go, "Oh, you're evil," because you're just driven by your natural inclinations or whatever,
Instincts.
Because they don't have any way to be able to control those or limit those or anything. So I think you're right on that, but I think Duffy is also right in the sense that if left to their own devices, man is evil.
No,
that's fair.
You say that Elle and Nier and the other dude, they were brought up in a different kind of way than most people, but Light really wasn't. He was smart, very intelligent, but he was a high schooler. He wasn't living, a richy life or anything. He knew what to do. Even though he didn't like the way the world worked, he knew, keep my mouth shut because there's nothing I can do about it. But
he was also groomed to be, like, perfect. He was supposed to be the best of the best. And so when he saw that other humans were failing that, he appointed himself as the god of that because he thought he was better.
No, basically. I think that you're definitely right about that, Ming. I think that in the way that Light was raised, being as exceptional as he was, when given the power to take people's lives and not have anything necessarily immediately happen to him in response to that, he took that as I now have the ability to affect change in a way that other people don't have because I'm, like you said, better. And I don't think anybody would disagree that Light thinks that he's better than everybody else.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, he certainly didn't have any fear to go about his plan, and whether that was out of confidence or arrogance, in the end, he still chose to do what was immoral, putting himself...
Or being...
He also might have been a sociopath.
Or being a Yeah, that's psychopath, too.
Well, whether or not he was beforehand, I mean, I can see that kind of power pushing someone to that, in that direction. Like,
what were you saying?
Yeah, Gary, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, you can see Light's morality scale shift. At the beginning, you almost, like, feel a sense of, okay, he has his power, he's taking out convicted killers, people who are murderers, and ridding the world of them. They're not going to be expense on the people of Japan, they're not going to be expense on humanity anymore. So he's taking them out, and it's almost like, okay, someone may be like, okay, that's fine, but then it shifts from, him doing quote unquote God's work to he makes a woman commit suicide, and something else he assassinates a member of the task force. Something
Yeah,
to
killing
keep his-
people,
Yeah,
killing people who opposed him.
Right, too, and at first it's almost like self-preservation. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I need to do this so I can keep doing my work. You know, if I'm the god in this new world, I need to keep doing God's work. So I need to protect that, these people. But then by the end of the series, it's, you know, the broadcasts are, Kira will kill anybody who even does like the smallest thing, and if he doesn't like you, and this, so like, and I mean the shift from you're almost sympathetic with or understanding, you know, Kira, to taking out the world scum, to now he's just a petty, he's become a petty, self-serving deity in his own mind.
Yeah.
I mean, that morality shift.
I mean, when you have that
Yeah.
power, that amount of power, it brings out whatever you naturally are.
There you go. There you go. That's what I was about to say. A friend who used to work with my dad told him, I don't want to be rich. And Dad's like, what are you talking about? Well, I don't want to be rich because money changes people. And Dad like had to put his arms around him and go, no, money doesn't change people. Money just brings out the worst in people. So when you get money, you have to make sure you're watching yourself.
Yep. And I think, you say money does that, but I think really power does that.
Power, yeah, but money is power.
Money is
power.
a kind of
Yeah.
power.
Yeah.
Because
and I hear people say, oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. No, you're fine.
I was going to say, I hear people say, you know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. But really,
Yeah.
pretty much any kind of power reveals the corruption in anybody. Like, you can see it from just the shift supervisor at a McDonald's to the CEO of, you know, Ford.
To the dean at the
Ford Motor
to the
Company.
deacon at the church.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Oh no.
Wow.
Oh no.
We're gonna go there already. We're already there. Okay. I hear you. But yeah, just any kind of power. And I mean, unfortunately, what you said is true. Someone gets that power over a certain, you know, class or ministry, and I mean, then we've all witnessed it. We've all seen it. Where, you know, that's their class, that's their ministry. You know,
Yeah.
over their dead body, is anyone else going to teach this class? Or
Oh my gosh, yeah. the substitute teacher. Look, I don't know what you guys do all day, but I guess just do it. And then the normal teacher comes back in. I am never letting the substitute teach you guys again. Y'all are even dumber than the last time I came in.
I heard y'all were sacrificing goats and drawing in blood.
To be
That-
fair, it
that's
was
not
only
gonna
one goat.
And he was already like at the end of his life.
I'm sorry, Janelle. I didn't know that you were a master in the English language. Forgive me for being wrong about your grammar.
Yeah,
Okay.
it seemed a little personal, but
It did. We're just gonna move on.
Oh. Okay, so yeah. But no, definitely Light already had those tendencies in him before he even got the Death Note. It's just with that much power, he was able to express it on a wider scale.
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that.
Because I want to say something like, I'm going to mess this up, but something along the lines of a weak man is incapable of being good. Because he doesn't have the ability to affect real evil. A very powerful man who has the ability to affect great evil and does not is a good man. I've heard somebody say that before, but
I've
I
heard
can't
that before
remember who said it.
too. I don't know if it's. I mean, it's a very short saying, so it's not like it can be.
Yeah, can you type it in the chat for me, Steven? You cut out for one
Yeah,
part
give
for
me
me.
a second.
It's
Yeah.
It's a weak man cannot truly do good because he doesn't have the power to actually affect any sort of good.
A weak
Any
man
kind of
cannot
real
be
change.
good.
A weak man can't do that. But a powerful man that could do evil, right? Is actually
doesn't.
doing good. Was that the saying?
Yeah, a weak man cannot be good because he cannot bring about great harm. A powerful man is the only person who is capable of being good.
See,
Okay,
that's not
yeah.
really. Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with that saying because. Why?
Anyone can be good. Basically.
The thing is like well, think back to the Bible when Jesus praised that woman, the old woman who gave her last money to the donation box.
Sure.
Right? I
Yeah.
mean, you don't have to be powerful to do good things or to affect good or whatever. It's like you can be good with very simple things. It might not be like the ripple effect might not be that huge, but it's still a good thing.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, because even a person who no one's ever heard of, who could barely lift a finger, could probably still pull a trigger and commit great harm.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. I mean, you can rob, you can steal.
Of course,
you can,
this saying was probably made before we had access to instant death weapons.
possibly. However, I'll argue that you can do evil simply by being lazy.
Or by being very smart.
That's true too. I would say there are people who throw their lives away and then expect people around them to make up for their laziness or inability. Like my wife's uncle, who is now dead. He was a lazy man, did a lot of evil things in his life, but when he got old, he didn't move. He ate all the time and wanted to sit in a chair, and everyone was expected to take care of him. I would say that's at the very least being a bad steward of what you've got, and then expecting other people to make up for it. I'd say that's a form of evil right there. At the very least, it's a form of not caring about those around you, not loving your neighbor. You could argue that. I mean, this guy did a lot of other things that I could say, but won't because it's just going to be on YouTube.
Yeah, it's...
But no, I think it doesn't matter how strong or weak you are, you can be evil, and you can also do good. If not, then...
Sure, but I'm saying like a weak man, a weak person has the... doesn't have the capacity to do like harm that a strong person does. And so because the weak person doesn't have that capacity, they don't really have the option to be like...
No, but I mean, a weak person can always do
Well,
harm.
no. But I think in the perspective of Death Note, at least, the Ryuk, the Shinigami, had been telling Light, yo, every other human this is dropped in front of basically, like, freaked out after writing the first name and figuring out this worked. And Light's like, well, I'm not like other humans. I'm strong enough to take all this on and keep doing it, because I've already planned ahead for this. Like, the weak-willed person wasn't able to be evil, and yet Light has the capacity, and he chose to go ahead and follow through with that.
Okay.
His capacity and drive to bring the world to what he thinks is a good world, is a perfect world.
Yeah, and Gary, you had something else you were going to say earlier?
Yeah, I was just rereading the quote here about a weak man cannot be good because he cannot bring about great harm.
Am I like I said, I may be butchering that.
I mean, we get the gist.
This
though.
may be completely wrong.
No, I've definitely heard that exact wording though, so I don't think you're wrong.
I was just trying to think what. See, I'm trying to put my words together here. Is not doing bad, like you not doing bad things, does that make a person good? Not doing bad.
Nope.
According to this quote, no, because since this guy is not good just because he can't do bad, he's not good. Whereas the man who can do bad and doesn't do bad. So I'm trying to wrap my brain around it.
Sure, and like I said, it was just a quote. It was just thought-provoking sort of thing. I don't even know if I necessarily agree with it. It was just sort of a thing that popped into my head.
I like it. Something to ponder on. I think a lot of people would like to ponder on it. If we could find the source for it, or even like put it in the comment section or something like that, or the description. I think that'd be cool. Or not. I mean, I don't know. I'm all hyped up on Dr. Pepper at this point.
Woo!
So.
No, you're good. Well, so that I don't even remember how we got on that.
Because Duffy started on talking about the human beings being evil.
We're
Oh yeah. Okay, that's fair. All right. So, is there anything else on that?
Yeah,
part
did we
of the subject
like
that wanna...
sidetrack you to the point you didn't get to say your conclusion?
Oh no, I didn't have a like. I already said everything I wanted to say earlier. That's why I'm saying. Is there anything else we want to discuss about that one?
I mean, if you want to go to the reformed beard side of it and, just throw down some total depravity on mankind, I mean, I'm down with that.
Now, I've got a question, because I'll hear a whole bunch of different answers on this, depending on who I'm asking. Total depravity means what exactly?
Yeah, because depending on who you ask,
because
it could mean any
total
number of
depravity
things.
means people can't even do good things, or is it just...
But I think that's
so
I think that's demonstrably false.
untrue. It's demonstrably untrue, yes. I've heard some people say that if an unsaved person or if a non-believer does a good deed, it wasn't done for the right reasons necessarily, because they were looking for attention or they had some ulterior motive, and I don't think you can possibly prove that. So I think it's kind of...
And I don't even... Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it falls into, like, the best that we can offer as a depraved being. Depraved beings, the best we can do without being redeemed, without being reborn, is equal to filthy rags.
Sure.
Dirty rags. Our righteousness is just filthy. That's our righteousness. And once we gain the righteousness of Christ through salvation, then, our acts have...
where they're imputed with the righteousness of Christ.
Right. Exactly.
So it's really not about what we're doing so much.
Right. I wouldn't say what it is, because, I mean, good, bad, unredeemed, it's the same thing.
Sure, but that's just because the point is that you can't earn your way, period. So, like, you're saying that it's as filthy rags because earning is not the point.
Right. So we're depraved in the sense that we cannot obtain that salvation upon our own merit.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's something I totally agree with.
In the sense that... But I've straight up heard people, like, go full... Like, it's impossible for unregenerate man to do any sort of good whatsoever, period. And I'm like, I think you're just wrong. Like, I think you could look at, like, people all across the world and show that they are capable of doing good actions. Things that we would all point to and say, that's a good action.
Right. I think it also comes down to what a person's, and this is like can be an entire podcast in itself, a person's definition of what is a good thing. What is?
I mean, that's basically Steven's whole everyday morality series now.
That is. I spend a lot of time talking about that.
It's a crossover episode. But yeah, I mean, there's none that doeth good. There's none that seeketh after God. According to the Book of Romans. But I mean, at the same time, I understand what you say. Like, helping feed homeless people, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Taking care of the fatherless and the widows, James describes as true religion. And whether a person is a Christian or not, we can all say, hey, that's a good thing. That's true religion undefiled.
Sure.
That act there is a good thing. So I can see where you say coming from, and somehow some hardcore Calvinists, for lack of a better term, will say, everything you do, the breath you take, when you go to work, everything you do is a sin. I've seen people take that. All acts are acts of unrighteousness.
I mean, then we got a lot of explaining to do when the New Testament is talking about Abraham's good works and stuff, considering, like, what good works?
Man.
We talking about when he told Pharaoh that Sarah was his sister, or when he told that other guy that Sarah was his sister, or when his son told Pharaoh that his wife was his sister.
That's running in the family, I think.
Yeah, right. I feel like maybe he had a sister complex.
Oh, God. Look, no one wants to see Abraham's internet history, okay?
No,
I'm glad that Abraham did not have access to the internet.
Actually, this is interesting because the video that's coming out right before this, which will be the podcast where Steve and I interviewed Spike Cohen, he's actually Jewish, And one of the things he brought up when talking about politics was how people can't rule themselves in the kind of way that we want to see, like in governments, the way we see it. It's always lead to corruption. And he brings up King David. There's a man God said was a man after God's own heart, but this guy still, like, best king Israel probably ever had, still went ahead and killed some guy because he really liked his wife. I mean, so even if you are a good person, you're still prone to corruption because it's just in your nature. And when I said earlier that all man is evil, that's what I was getting at. All man has that corrupt nature, and even believers aren't going to be free of that until later.
Gary, you go first, but I just had a conversation about this earlier, and it involves Death Note, so...
I think I actually lost. I think what I was about to say.
That's okay.
Let's see. Because we were going, and then gracious. So you're good. Go ahead, man.
Okay, so I had a conversation because of while we were watching Death Note, a friend of mine was like, "See, I agree with Light's idea though," which is why my part of like, is it morally right to pass judgment on other people's crimes as a singular person? They're like, I agree with how Light is doing things. I feel like if they actually, like, there is proof that they did it and they have been condemned, that they should actually be punished to the full extent of the law, meaning the death penalty. There shouldn't be a wait period, and all that. And I'm like, okay, but should that be good for one person to do? And she's like, no, it shouldn't be good for one person to do, which is why I want a police state. I'm like, excuse me, what? And she's like, yeah, I want cameras everywhere.
Oh no!
So that I want Big Brother. I want cameras everywhere. I don't want there to be any question of whether someone is telling the truth or not. I want there to always be proof. I'm like, okay, so I'm not gonna say anything about how people would fake that, but human beings are worth. Whenever that would be implemented, would want to keep their own self-preservation. So they would buy the companies who were running the cameras to doctor their own stuff so they could get away with stuff. So you couldn't just leave that to itself. She's like, no. You would leave it to AI. And I'm like, excuse me, what? Like, yeah, I'm like, the AI is made by a human, which is inherently flawed, and you're asking a flawed AI to take care of moral judgments about whether someone should die. She's like, well, I'm saying in a perfect world.
Okay,
like,
okay. That
we're playing in the
hold
land
on.
of
In a perfect world, there's no crime. That's what makes it perfect.
It's like,
yeah, exactly.
It's like any system
Dungeons
works.
and Dragons.
Any system works in a perfect world. I mean, it's like,
I want the pedos to be killed in my perfect world. No. There are no pedos in the perfect world. There are no thieves or murderers or domestic abusers. None of this stuff is happening in a perfect world because it's perfect. So, like, when people start talking about
Look,
how
if you're not doing anything wrong, you can't do anything wrong
I think-
about it.
Yeah, if there's that's what her thing was. She was like, look, I understand that people want their privacy, but I don't see what the problem is if you're not doing anything wrong. And I'm like,
that means
not.
It's because you're assuming that the people in power are good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like they're not going to sell your information. They're not going to like use it to blackmail you. All of this other stuff. And also, it doesn't matter whether it's a good, like if it's the good outweighs the bad or not. If people do not consent to it 100%, you shouldn't be allowed to do anything with that person's personal information.
no,
Consent is what makes it not a crime.
and the funny thing is, we already live in a world where cameras are everywhere. And in people's hands, on ATMs, on red lights, cameras are everywhere now. And everyone's
Google, I don't want to buy any more soda. Stop recommending me soda on my Amazon list. Jeez.
all this information, all your information is online, on whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or Google or somewhere else. All of this is already happening.
Oh yeah.
And if somebody wanted to use that in the way they're talking about, in a Big Brother kind of criminal justice system, I'd be scared. Because it takes is one person to say, you know what, I think that's a Minority Report level crime here. We got to take the person out before they commit crimes.
If you've not watched Psychopaths, you need to watch that because that's
Yeah,
very
I've
much.
watched that.
Yes, absolutely.
So I was trying to get her to come to understand me. It's like, I don't care whether you agree it's morally right to pass. Like, if they committed crimes, yes, there should be a punishment, but there shouldn't be a singular person deciding that. there shouldn't even be like less than 100 people deciding that. That is something that it's not right for the humans to do. However, biblically, we have laws of what crimes are punishable by death versus which ones are not.
But do you?
But now
I mean, like, and you also, and I'm sort of. Did you have something to say, Gary?
No, you go ahead.
Okay,
it'll probably be somewhere near around the same thing I'm going to say.
So I think a lot of those particular laws that carried the death penalty. First of all, the law versus not under the law anymore.
Yeah, no.
Second of all, those particular laws geared towards the Israelites during that time were really put there specifically for the Israelites to be able to flourish in a world surrounded by pagan tribes that wanted to destroy them. And so, absent that, it doesn't look the same. And people can say, "Oh, well, it's God's law is God's law," sort of thing. Yeah, God's law is one thing, but it's there are principles that apply. That's why when Christ talked about it in the New Testament, he says that it's about basically love God, love people, that sort of thing.
Well, that's why whenever it comes to like, sorry, I've got just one more point and I'm done.
You're good.
That's why, like, when it comes to war and stuff, it's like, oh, you can get away with killing people then because you're at war. But if it's just a everyday situation and you walk up to someone and shoot them in the face, no, that's not right.
Sure. What are you saying?
Yeah, there's a lot. I think a lot of people have trouble with discerning is that there's a lot of scripture that is. I think it's written for all of us, but it's not written to all of us.
Amen.
Yeah,
thank you.
Makes sense.
Yes, sir.
No,
absolutely.
So it's like this is for my benefit. The books of history, the books of the poems, and all those are definitely for my benefit. The law is for my benefit and to glean from and to live a holier life. But I mean this certain thing. I'm throwing down a bacon sandwich. It's happening. So that unclean pig. That's not for me. Praise the Lord.
Oh yeah, no.
So,
and a lot of that stuff you have to look at like the time and the culture too, because there are certain things that even in the Bible wouldn't apply to our daily lives today.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The context of who wrote it, when it was written, to whom it was written, all the context of the scriptures needs to be taken into account.
Gary.
Yes.
I know you like biblical scholarship stuff. So I'm going to point you to my current favorite biblical scholar, Michael S. Heiser. He has a podcast called the Naked Bible Podcast. And it looks at things like purely through scholarship, and it's like trying to completely divorce from traditions and just looking at it from like purely like an academic scholarship sort of. I mean, he's a believer, but it's like he's not like he tries to divorce it from like, okay, well, why do we believe these things? If we say this thing is the truth as in a church tradition, is that lining up with what Scripture says? Is it logically consistent?
Right.
I've been listening to a bit of it too since Steven recommended it to me. It's really good, and plus, the first few episodes, they're short, are all about baptism and the modes and stuff. And I grew up Baptist, so full immersion. My wife grew up Presbyterian, so sprinkling of babies and stuff. And when I listened to this guy talk about it, he was like, I don't remember the exact word, but it was kind of like, everyone has these different theories on what it is. Here's why they can be right. Now, here's why all of these people are wrong. Like, I'm not holding back. They're absolutely wrong if this is what they think, blah, blah, blah. So, I like that kind of talk.
Just
very straight.
I can probably already assume Duffy's opinion, but just so I get everyone else's on the tables. I personally have the opinion that you do not need to be baptized by a priest or by anyone in order to go to heaven or be saved.
That's absolutely true.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. I had a person from the Church of Christ in high school, so this might have been just because they were ignorant about the rest of it, but just kept telling me, no, you absolutely need to be baptized. You cannot be saved without being baptized.
Yeah, no.
Someone hasn't read their New Testament.
Yeah, right.
So even like, you mentioned Church of God, and Duffy mentioned being Baptist. Even Baptists, they say, and Baptist doctrine, you don't have to be baptized to be saved, but you start like changing some stuff with that, and they get real defensive real quick. Like we had a discussion and say, let's say someone is bed stricken at home, and they get saved and they want to be baptized. Could their son or their daughter baptize them in their bathtub, and would that be a legitimate baptism?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people were like, well, no, the preacher ain't doing it. It's not at the river. It's not in front of a congregation.
Oh my gosh.
It's not, and people get really defensive about that. But
about their traditions.
Exactly. Forget your traditions.
As a church ordinance, and we can talk about local church, universal church, all that stuff at some other time. But nowhere is it like I need to be baptized by this preacher. Paul even wrote about that. I'm of Peter, I'm of Apollos. This guy baptized.
It's like none of that matters.
No, it's symbolic as much as a wedding ring is. Without a wedding ring, I'm still married. So
can we just talk about for 1 second how sick that Paul is? Like literally was literally followed the laws to a T, and then as soon as Jesus made his appearance and Paul believed, ever since then he's like telling all of the people of the church, look, yes, I understand you guys don't know what's going on. I'm telling you what's going on. This is how it should go. I know this. I've been studying this my life, and I understand which things you need to know.
I'm sorry, I'm just getting like this mental picture of Paul's like, yeah, I've been doing this for 30 years. I know. No, don't do that anymore. No, Jesus is the way. He is. I know he said that. I wasn't earlier, but he is. How do I know? Because he kicked me off my horse, and it hurt.
He kicked me off my high horse. I was blind. Blind, I tell you.
I was blind for 3 days. Okay.
Paul turns around. See, the apostles are okay with me now, and Peter's calling up from the back. I'm still not really sure.
Well, that is a pretty Peter. That is a pretty Peter thing to do. And to be fair, I think if it came to blows, I think Peter would whip Paul.
For sure. He's Peter's the Rock.
Dude, Peter the Rock.
Fisherman. Peter the Pebble, but the boulder has issues.
Now we have to do an Avatar episode. Thanks.
I want to make some fan art now of Peter dressed like the boulder. So we commissioned Pants to make that.
Oh my gosh.
Like when Jesus says, all of you will betray me, and Peter's like, no, not I. There, you can have it. The boulder has issue with what you say, Jesus.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, man.
But,
all right.
Yeah, Peter was a fisherman. He could pull up those nets. And Paul, he spent his entire life reading.
No, he was the scrawny nerd.
And not to mention the fact when the soldiers came to grab Jesus, the person to start throwing down was Peter. He was like, you know what? Cool, let's go.
What was that?
He's ratchet
what was
as
that
all
song,
get
Steven,
out.
that you were tweeting about before? Try Jesus, not me. Cause,
because I throw hands.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they start arresting Jesus, and that song just starts playing behind Peter, and he's just...
Yeah, well...
Jesus' theme song.
Yeah.
Gary's been getting in the flesh.
So yeah, no, it's so basically we've all agreed that it's not morally right for one person to pass judgment.
Yeah, so if we're talking about the killing of people that are convicted criminals or whatever else, one person being able to do that, we get into some issues about the nature of societies and the rule of law. Because have this this idea of a social contract where we've said that we all agree that we are going to follow certain laws in order to create a more a safer society for everybody, and that includes people not doing things of their own volition that are
that's
because we give up that power to the government because we want to make sure that people aren't just willy-nilly killing people.
And that's like what Light pointed out in like the first episode. He's like, see, people when they're around other people have to keep up their social construct, so they have to say, oh, I don't agree with this. But if they were actually able to express themselves like on the internet where they're anonymous, they actually agree with what Kira is doing because they're getting rid of evil people.
Yeah, but then at some point you have to say, well, first of all, what is evil? And second of all, who are the evil people? Because at some point you start to go down that line of, well, I guess you jaywalked, so peace out.
Guess you gotta die now. Yeah.
It reminds me.
So
no, this isn't anime, but I grew up watching Justice League, the TV series from 2001, and there's this I think 3-part episode where they wind up in an alternate universe where the Justice League went full on to take over the world for the sake of justice.
Yeah.
And
the
Justice Lord arc. So Batman are in the car in Gotham City, and everything looks pretty, and everything looks nice, and the streets are clean, and then they witness this guy throwing a fit because his check at the restaurant was wrong, and he winds up getting arrested for it. Because you got it, and if you want people to respect the big laws, like Justice Lord Batman says, you got to enforce the little ones.
What kind of bad day must that dude had if he's been living in society that long with the Justice Lords, and all of a sudden he's just like, I can't take it anymore. You got my check wrong.
Of all places, I mean, there's plenty of cities where superheroes don't live. You're doing this right next to the Batmobile in plain sight.
Well, listen. They've only been ruled by the Justice Lords for like 2 or 3 years.
Still.
So he's had his whole life to be, conditioned in a world where there are no Justice Lords. So, he had a little bit of an off day, but it's okay because he was taken away. Exactly. He's
Oh yeah, I'm sure Mom and Dad would be real proud.
Our Earth Bruce stopped the stoplight, and Batman was like, "What are you doing?" Small laws, red light. We got to stop here. No, that's it's scary because if you want a perfect world, you have to go that far. And in the end, you're going to be ruling by fear one way or the other. Because, like you said, Light says, they'll pretend to not like Kira in real life, but then when they're on the internet, which is anonymous, they'll say they love him. But how do you know they're doing that because they actually love him? Maybe they're scared.
Which is why this is important. I think this is a big Christian theme. Which is why you can't have external law be the thing that keeps people good. It has to be an internal change. You have to change the people, and they have to be good on the inside. They have to willingly choose those things. So that's the whole point of being born again, is that you create a person who is now, through the power of God, capable of making those choices for the right reasons. If that makes sense. Yeah. And so the ultimate end goal of all things is to have God be all in all. And so given his spirit in order to be able to do things, to choose good. And so you don't have to have the law anymore because it's the law dwells within you.
That's why the saying evil people are going to do evil no matter what the law is exists, because it's basically true. It's like, even if you said there is no laws at all, just don't do anything bad, they'll do bad. Okay, well, everything's wrong, they'll still do bad. Yeah. So
you can't do that. That's illegal.
I mean, that's basically what
we were talking about earlier. The whole "don't press the button." Don't do this. Don't do this thing. Garden of Eden. Don't take a
You have one job.
One rule.
One job.
One thing not to do.
And
you can hang out with
also,
animals, name all the animals.
Yeah.
You get to walk around naked.
Yeah, you were literally...
It is
You were
paradise.
walking around with the most powerful being every day for who knows how long, and then suddenly a talking snake just whispers in your ear, "Eat the apple."
You know, maybe Eve was thinking, "Oh my gosh, a talking snake!
Fruit. But
This is amazing."
So the Bible also doesn't tell us how long that had
Oh
been
no,
going
it could have
on
been.
either.
It could have been
Like,
decades. It could have been hours.
Could have been
Who
20
knows?
minutes.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
but
Who knows?
You're right, because it starts off with just don't eat this one piece of fruit. Just don't do it. And then it's, hey, Cain, look, just try not to kill your brother. All right, just don't do it. And then it's all right, fine. Here's 10 commandments. All right, and okay, fine. You know what? Here's
Also-
600 and something commandments. Here's a king that
I
you asked
love
for.
I love whenever there's a book that I read that's about Arthurian legend about King Arthur and stuff, and they're putting someone on trial, and a woman comes up and she's representing the case for the trial, and someone's like, "We can't trust a woman because she was tricked by Satan himself," and she's like, "Yeah, but who tricked the man?" Just a woman. It didn't even take Satan. So
wow.
Who's more?
Hey, you know
foolish?
what? That's why we have such a hard time listening to them now, because the first time we listened to them, it was a whole big ordeal.
Who's
That's
the bigger
funny.
idiot? The idiot that falls for the lies of the snake, or the idiot that falls for the person that fell for the snake?
Well, to be fair, Adam knew what the fruit looked like, and it doesn't have to be an apple. It just says the fruit.
Yeah.
So, Adam knew what it looked like, and then Eve brought it to him, and she's like, "Look, I ate this. I'm not dead." So he was like, "Well, I know God said not to eat it, but I'm gonna do it anyways."
What's dead? What is dead anyway?
Well,
I don't
you
think
know, Yeah. I think there's this one level of understanding where you look at it and you step away and you say, okay, that's a human being who doesn't really have an understanding of how things maybe work as a whole, and maybe they haven't been around for super long, and they might be intelligent, but they also don't they haven't had a whole lot of dealings with things that are subtle, like the serp. So I mean, it's like, what's lying? And so like when you're confronted with that and said, when God says, well, if you eat this, you die, and then Eve walks up and is like, hey, I ate the fruit, and is like, well, you're not dead, so maybe it's fine. And so it's on one level, it's like, okay, maybe you can understand it, but on the other level, it's like faith is believing what God said, and they didn't.
Yeah. Gary, let's go ahead and discuss your topic you wanted to. There is no justice in Death Note. There isn't a right and wrong. It's just the task force versus Kira.
Yeah, there's no justice in Death Note. So, yeah, after watching it, and when I watched it, I watched probably like 3/4 of it all at one time, and then I stopped watching it until like a month or so ago, and I finished it, and there was like a considerable amount of time in between that, and so I don't know, not sure if like my perspective changed from when I started watching it to whatever, but really, I had this idea going in. It's you have your protagonist, which is light, and which protagonist does not equal good guy.
Sure.
But really, in the world of Death Note, it's not good versus evil. It's light and his ambitions versus the Kira apprehension task force or whatever. And it's light versus L, and then it's light versus Nier, and light versus Mellow. And really, there's no consequence for good and evil deeds, so to speak, in that world. I mean, the only spiritual beings that we're shown and seems to be the only ones in existence for that universe are
The Shinigami.
the gods of death.
Yeah.
And there's not even like there's the king, god of death, whatever. But I mean, human interactions. There's no consequence for right. There's no consequence for wrong. So instead of good versus evil, it's really just Light's story, his beginnings, his rise, his fall, and all that. But there's no justice.
So
Yep.
okay, so
My-
we need to do some things first. We need to define what you mean by justice.
So as far as like justice, I mean as far like divine justice.
Okay.
As like there's
definitely not a
standard.
cosmic like
Right.
justice that is
There's no
present.
cosmic
Yeah.
justice. A divine
'cause-
scale for right and wrong.
My friend explained Ryuk as being what did he say? Literally just that one dude who's watching everything you do. When you do good, great, but also if you do bad, great as well.
Yeah. Pretty much. There's no consequence for actions. It's all
In
based
fact, the
on
the Shinigami's whole thing, the only reason they kill humans is to expand their own life. So they're doing it for a self-protection
Yeah.
anyway.
Sure. And
yeah, there's no higher standard. There's no standard of, I guess, of justice or of righteousness.
Yeah.
and
Which is why
Go ahead.
Which is why Light and L both take it upon themselves to
Be
enact
justice.
Yeah,
Right.
which is why the first time you see L in his actual persona, he says, I will get my justice, and then it does like a split screen to Light at the same time saying the same thing.
Sure.
Right. At that, even at one point, Light near the end, they're talking about if they apprehend Kira or not, and Light says to the task force, if we catch Kira, if we beat him, then we've caught a serial killer. But if Kira gets away, then Kira is justice, and justice is no longer. I guess there's no absolute justice. I guess.
So you say like the
justice,
victor is
right. The victor is the writer of history. The victor determines what is
right or wrong.
It's
might
it's all in the
is right
perspective of
sort of
who
thing.
wins. Right.
Sure, and I would definitely agree with you that there's no such thing as a cosmic justice in Death Note, just because there is no question about the nature of the cosmos in Death Note. We have ready apprehension of it, but that doesn't mean that there's no such thing as justice, because to say that there is. Because you're essentially equating cosmic justice with justice in general. Like if there's no cosmic justice, then there's no such thing as justice. And I would disagree with that.
Well, I would say that if there is no God, if there is no higher being, higher standard, then what we do, we have morals and we have ethics, the way we present ourselves, the way we interact with each other, and we could call, if someone violates that and there's a punishment for it, we can call that a justice.
Sure.
But, I mean, as far as what is just and right, there isn't.
So
We've
that's
all collectively agreed to.
okay.
That
So
this is right, this is wrong.
So no, not really, but yes, but no. What's the meme? Yes,
Well,
but also
yes,
no.
But actually, no.
Yeah, yes, but actually no. And I say that because, much like there are scientific principles about how the universe operates, based, that exist. Like we can find out that XYZ molecule, when interacting with other element over here, does this. Then we start to understand how the laws of the universe operate, how they are. So if you look at human beings, we have a certain type of makeup. We have a certain type of relationship with each other. We have a certain type of relationship with the world. We have certain wants, needs, desires, and feelings. At the base level of humanity, we have no apprehension of what morality is. We have no idea what it is. The only thing that we have any knowledge of, I am currently getting the crawling thing that you're talking about, for the record.
Yeah.
So I don't know if somebody's like rubbing their microphone or something. But the only thing that we have apprehension of is that I want what I want, or I have desires, but I don't want to be killed. So that's where everything starts. So I restrict myself in order to not die. And then you restrict yourself in order to not die. And then through a series of processes that we do like a scientific method through individual interactions, societal interactions, nation states interactions, we come to these conclusions that are the baseline of morals, which are the understanding of how humans ought to operate in order to produce the best situation that is for our own survival. Does that make sense? That's a very, very short. That's a very, very short, broken down version of what I'm talking about.
Like, I'm tracking.
Okay, so when I say that, yeah, there's no such thing as cosmic justice in Death Note, but there absolutely is a such thing as justice to humans.
Societal justice.
I mean, it's not doesn't have to be societal justice; it's human justice.
I mean, more than one human would count.
Sure.
As
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, like,
I don't know.
To-
Even then, I would say societal justice is illusion at best.
and it's not.
Because
It's
there's no.
and it's not always. It's not. It's you move through these periods of okay, this was good, this was bad, this was bad on this side, this was bad on this side, and you move towards whatever that middle line is, and it's a constant testing process to be able to find out what works and doesn't work to produce the best results for humanity. And that's what, just much like science is a thing that produces results for humanity, morality is the same thing.
I want to attribute the term justice to that. I see what you're saying, and I'm tracking with you, but
Okay.
Here, hold on. Let me.
I stand where I am.
Okay. So I guess we really need to define what justice is then, because
Oh, that's what I was doing. I was going to Google the definition of justice in the Bible.
Which word?
Yeah, exactly.
There's the chaos, but that's actually righteousness.
So the English dictionary, first of all, has two definitions for it: just behavior or treatment, and the second one is a judge or magistrate in particular.
Then we
blah,
need
blah,
a
blah,
definition of what just is.
whatever. Yeah.
Good
Yeah,
job,
hold on.
Google. That's not how you define
It's a
words.
just thing to do. 'Cause if you think about it,
Define
you know what
just.
that means.
Only.
I got it.
Like,
I got it.
justice-
Based on
justice and grace.
well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
when something is just, it is based on
Fair.
or behaving according to what is morally right and fair. So if it is moral, it is just.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if I want to jump 100% in agreement with that, but I can.
Well, then then give me your
I'm
definition of
chewing on it.
justice.
I'm chewing on it. Just let me think about it, Steve. Just a practical conversation.
So is it well done or is it
Okay.
medium? Because we were.
It's always well done.
No, if it's
Okay,
justice,
so-
it's medium.
all right.
So,
I will.
sorry, you.
It's fine. I'll amend my comment to no justice to empty justice.
Okay.
I don't know. I get really nihilistic if there's no
If there's no
accountability.
God.
Yeah.
Like it's really just like
Like,
Yeah.
I
what's
understand, and not
and what's
everyone's like that, and I
yeah, well,
understand.
I mean, I'm definitely not, because like I don't feel like I'm not a divine command theory morality person. I am in the sense that God created the universe and the rules are set up in the sense that God created the universe, but like morality could shift if humans were different. Like morality wouldn't look the same if humans were different.
Morality and that's why it's hard for me to say that morality and justice is so equal.
It seems like when you say justice,
is
you're talking
a
about
spectrum.
like. It seems like when you say justice, you're talking about getting your reward or punishment.
That's maybe what it is, because when I think of justice, it's okay. You've done this, so your actions equal this. Your X
Okay.
actions equal Y results.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So going off
Okay.
of that, the most biblical term, and it just fuck yeah there. the most biblical reference term for the word justice means to make right. So
Okay.
By Hebrew definition.
Actually,
least.
no. This is
There's definitely none of that in.
not in Death Note.
Yeah, no.
But actually, this
Nothing
is,
right's going on in Death Note.
this is good because if justice, you could say justice is a fair and or moral consequence for someone's action, whether it's reward
To your
or punishment.
actions, yeah.
However, in the Bible, justice is also done on the cross when it's not fair that Jesus went through that for sins he did not commit, and yet justice is still done because that that fair consequence that should have been on us was put on him instead. Even though it's not fair from anyone's standpoint, it's still just.
But to be fair,
To be just.
but to be just, to be just, it may not be fair in the sense that that Jesus didn't deserve it, but it's just there's justice in the sense that it was the right thing to do, and it be like, does that make sense? Like praise
Yes,
God because
absolutely.
he's good, and he like because people talk about like, oh well, like God could have not redeemed humanity and would have been perfectly justified in doing so. And on one hand, I can say yeah, but the nature of God is such that he's good, so he's not going to do that.
Right. Yeah,
You could-
there's the whole for God so loved the world. His justice and his grace will never, I don't see them ever violating each other. Like his justice doesn't throw off his grace, and his grace
God
doesn't throw off
cannot
his justice.
contradict himself.
Exactly.
I mean,
he's
justice
perfect
allows
he's perfect
for-
grace, he has perfect love.
Justice allows for
perfect
grace and
holiness.
mercy. Grace and mercy done properly fits right in alongside whatever the desire of justice would be.
Yes, because in our world, you might deserve death, but there is a way to get out of that punishment if you actually want to repent, if you have actually paid for your dues.
Or if someone forgives you.
Yeah,
Yeah, or if someone forgives you. So
Let me see.
forgiveness is that magic kind of.
And
Justice.
I think you could say that forgiveness is like, even though it's mercy and grace, there's also justice being done, because it's like those things are not they don't exist anymore. Basically, the things that you did wrong.
Especially
Yes,
after the cross.
yeah.
I mean, forgiveness is pretty much like Jesus said about the parable of the debtors. The rich man forgives the one slave, but then the one slave doesn't forgive the other slave. So, did that other slave have the right to not forgive a debt? Maybe, but it wasn't just, because forgiveness is absolute justice here. Like, you should have done this. It would have been the better outcome. It would have been the better way forward. But instead,
right thing to do.
it's the right thing to do. And partially
And I think
because you were already
I think
forgiven of
specifically in that instance, though, that was more about, since you had been shown that forgiveness, you ought to show that forgiveness.
Right. No,
forward.
absolutely. But at the same time, it shows that forgiveness is justice. Because the first debt is wiped away now purely because the one who was owed the money decided to forgive it. Now nothing's owed. And now, if nothing's owed, that means justice has been done. It's been essentially repaid. It's just been done with an alternate currency, and that is with forgiveness being given to the debtor.
So on that note, you could say justice being done doesn't necessarily have to be just one thing. It could be multiple.
There could be multiple
Correct.
ways to see justice done. God could do justice and send all sinners to hell with no forgiveness,
And it would
but
be
it's
fine.
not
Which
the
is-
ideal way of doing things. It's not his way of doing things.
yes, which is why we have 4 characters in Death Note all believing in their own sense of justice, because there are different ways that can be implemented.
And we know Kira
But I would
does
argue that
do-
some of them are wrong.
No, they're definitely...
Yes, I would
You
too.
can say, look, especially in the beginning, Kira does good things. Like people who deserve it, condemned, convicted criminals, get their comeuppance. They get their justice through being killed. It doesn't mean that was the ideal way of achieving justice. It certainly wasn't Kira's place to go after it, but justice was done.
Because
even
it's
if
like, what if you had a note that was not the death note, but it was the life note, and when you wrote somebody's name in it, all of a sudden they wanted to be good.
Now, a Calvinist would call that the Book of Life.
But then then you're controlling people's free will, which is why I don't like the idea of the rest of the Death Book's rules, where you're allowed to control what they do before they die within a reasonable thing.
I mean,
Are we playing the land of make believe again? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Don't even start. That's a different.
It's all a matrix.
That's a different argument. That's a different day.
I'll shave my beard for that day.
Hey, we'll all shave our beards for that day.
So yeah, but I think that's a good point, because on some level you could say that killing someone in general is a violation of their free will in the sense that it kills them. But like, there's some serious violence done to the will when you write in the note that you're going to do X, Y, and Z prior to dying. You know what I mean?
Right.
Does that make sense? And it's what's interesting. What's interesting is that it's not even like they're doing it and they don't think they want to do whatever it is that they've been told that they're do. So like, if I say that if I write Gary's name in the death note and I say that he's going to walk into the other room and stab himself in the chest with a knife, it's not like he just does it and he's like, oh no, what am I doing? All of a sudden he has that desire to go do that. So on some level, is that even is like, I would argue that that's violence against the person's will, but some people might not argue that that's violence against the person's will because they want to do it.
I mean, that doesn't make sense to argue that though. Because had it not
but Calvinists will do it all day long.
Because had you not intervened with some ungodly power, it wouldn't have happened, and he never would have wanted to do it. So
So if you've read all of the like rules of the Death Note, but between all of the episodes or just through a list or whatever, one of them clearly states suicide is an option for every single human because every single human has that thought. And I'm like, no. But okay.
It's a pessimistic way of looking at it, but I can't speak for everybody. But
I mean, I can speak for me.
Yeah,
I've gotten low. Okay.
I mean, I've been there. Yeah. I can't. No, you can't speak for everybody. I mean, maybe that's true. Maybe everyone's been at that low point, but you can't be certain of that.
So quick question. Because, and this doesn't really pertain to Death Note, but it's more
just go for it.
Anywho, so whenever you're going through to tell someone about Jesus and why he came down and died for our sins and how he's someone that you can look up to because he actually lived as a human. He understands all the things, all the troubles he went through. I'm not sure, at least not from my memory, it ever mentioning something as close to suicide, but I would believe that first fasting he did for the 40 days would have been an appropriate time since he was being tested by the devil.
So the fasting time, we don't know what went through his mind, but I imagine that, if I don't eat for 40 days, I probably want to die. Garden of Gethsemane.
Yeah, that was the other point.
Yep. Nope, you're right.
With that level of stress on you, like, I'd be thinking it, like, I could go through it now, or I could just do this. But
it's like, this is the easy way out. And he's like, and that Jesus was a man because he was like, if we can not do this,
please,
can we not do this? He's like, but
literal sweating blood, so much, but in the end, and that's what sets him apart from every other human. In the end, it's okay. I don't want this, but if you really need me to do this, then I'm going to do this. Your will be done.
Yeah.
And I think, and Duffy and I had a conversation about this. This is that people really, they talk about the deity of Christ a lot, and I think that's, you definitely have to talk about the deity of Christ. That's super important. But people don't talk about the humanity of Christ, that he was absolutely a man, and he didn't know everything, and he wasn't all powerful, and he gave up all of that stuff to be a human being. and that means he was a human being.
And to me,
when I teach the kids, I would tell them, I would try to relate Christ to him, because he obviously is deity, but his humanity. I'm like, who has brothers and sisters? Everybody raise their hands. You ever want to hit your brother and sister? Everyone raise their hand. Jesus had brothers and sisters, and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah.
Don't tell the Catholics
me and my
that.
sisters fought all the time. But,
and I'm sure they wanted to hit him back
because
too.
how many times did Mary say, "Why can't you just be more like your brother Jesus"?
I don't know, Mom. Why can't I?
He literally was born without dad.
Sometimes I wish your dad was at
Oh, that's so bad.
I mean, Jesus went through all that stuff, and as a man, I wonder how early he knew about his death on the cross. How soon he realized, did it happen the month before that God? Cause I feel like the Father had to have been revealing this thing to him piecemeal. Because
what's the first time he brings it up?
The death? I don't know.
Here,
while he searches that, I want to just back that up without it just being me saying, "Oh, I think God didn't know about these things." There are times in the Gospels where he says one thing, and then turns around and does the opposite. Like he said, "I'm not going to heal the centurion's servant," and then the centurion shows faith, and he says, "Okay, I'm going to do that instead then." And when he tells his mom, this isn't my time, I'm not going to go save a wedding party. And a little bit while later, he goes ahead and he saves the party. So I don't think that, I think it just kind of goes hand in hand with him putting aside his glory and his omnipotence to become a human. Part of that would be having to rely on the Father for knowledge of what to do next. Because that's what we have to do.
He had to have faith.
He had to have faith to know what to do next, just like we have to do. Like, how often do we know what's coming next? If we think that Jesus had to, part of the point of Jesus living a perfect life and going through temptation and fasting and stress in the Garden of Gethsemane and all this other stuff, part of that has to be showing that you can truly live a life that is reliant on the Father telling you what to do next.
If memory serves, which it may not, so if memory serves correct, right after Peter's confession about you're Christ, the Son of God, and he says, "You're right, you're Simon Bar-Jonah." After that, he began to teach how Christ needs to die, how he was going to be the sacrifice.
Gotcha.
Matthew 16. I'm gonna go ahead and start in verse 20.
Go for it.
Or actually 19. He was talking to Peter and how Peter was going to be his rock, blah, 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 and the kingdom of heaven. 21. From that time forth, Jesus began to show unto his disciples that he must go into Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders and chief of priests and be killed. And that's when Peter went and rebuked him.
So yeah, it was not too long before it went down.
Not too long after he grabbed all his disciples, basically.
So, I mean, that whole, not to say it was at the very most, he knew for about 3 years, probably.
Mm-hmm.
You could even,
I think you could maybe that, though he knew that because he understood the prophecies better than anyone else did.
This is true.
He knew he was the Messiah, and he knew what the Messiah's job was.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna backpedal on that one.
It could easily be a matter of I know this, and then the closer he gets to that date, the more he realizes.
There's a difference between understanding the text and then
realizing what you're about to go through as the Messiah.
I feel like yes, when he came down to earth, there were things that he was not allowed to reveal, and he had to live as a human. But I don't feel like his memory was completely erased. More like as a God being living in a human body, the human body could not contain all of it at once, kind of thing. So as he matured, he got the information that he needed.
But that would have just been the same way that the Father would reveal it to anybody else.
as a believer, I go to pray, Lord, give me guidance for this certain situation. I have in my times had things revealed to me that I can't make heads or tail of, but I know, like, oh, this is actually what I need to know for this situation.
Gary, do you have a fan on in your room?
I do.
Can you turn the fan off?
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
I think that might be the issue.
There might be Bruce Willis in the vents.
Excuse me.
You are forgiven. Justice has been done.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, we better wrap this up.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's almost 9:00 where I'm at.
Oh okay.
So.
Do you have a bedtime?
I have to work
okay.
early in the morning.
Okay.
All right. Well, so that you know what, Gary, that was it. It was the fan.
That's it. That was it.
Yeah. No, we don't have any more
Okay,
noise
how about
issues.
that?
Well, now the episode's over.
I'm so
Glad we
sorry.
figured out the audience. Okay.
So yeah, we
sorry.
talked about a lot of random things related to Death Note and not related to Death Note.
That's just how it goes with us, though. I think it's fine.
It's kind of hard to talk about Death Note as far as like a theological standpoint because such the lack of theology presented, whereas it may be more appropriate.
Well, except for everyone putting themselves as God, basically.
I mean, no, that's
self-idolatry, I guess. Yeah.
and I think we don't need to look at anime as what's the theology found in anime 1, 2,
Absolutely.
3. It's what kind of questions does it raise? And
Yeah.
I think that's the way
that's
we should
important
look
for
at
all fiction.
it. It is.
Yeah, I think it provided a good springboard because I mean we were able. I was actually personally concerned if we were able to fill up time.
And here we are at
with
about
it,
an
but,
hour and 20
Like I
minutes.
said, it's closing into my bedtime soon.
Yeah.
So I mean, so
Yeah. So I mean, as far as closing thoughts on the series, got anything that you want to say in closing about the series? That's fine if not. If not, I've got some things about that I've gotten feedback from listeners for the podcast. One of them being that sometimes our voices are a little similar. So I'm trying to speak with a little bit more of a upbeat version to my tone of voice, so that people can kind of make
Duffy.
yeah, so because apparently not everybody was watching, they were just listening.
It didn't really matter
So-
halfway through since the video went out.
Yeah, this is true. But anyway, yeah. So that was one thing, and then another thing is about some people were wondering if whenever we were addressing a series, they got irritated with our jump offs of that were things that were not related to.
I mean, that's just the way conversation goes. You're going to have
Sure.
rabbit trails.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, we can
And I think part of the problem was with last time is that we entitled the episode something like "Science versus God," and so people were going into that thinking that we were gonna like have some sort of like debate type setup, and then all of a sudden we started talking
you
about
think that was,
music,
like,
and then
clickbait?
people were like,
I didn't
so
mean
like
to make that clickbait. I mean, that was kind of like where the conversation started. It seemed interesting.
sure, and so I think I'm not
Maybe leave it more open-ended
on the title stuff, and then also we can maybe break up pieces that are like more topical and throw them out there.
That's fair. We could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll go ahead and end here. I guess.
I'll say this. Death Note's an interesting series because in the end, there is no justice. There's not even really a resolution because Kira is dead and L doesn't get to see it. And what's Nier? No one cares about what Nier got. So okay, he won. Who cares? I mean,
Nobody's happy except Ryuk.
No, honestly, Ryuk's the one that is like the protagonist of the story.
He
It's
gets
like,
the apples. apples.
Now I'm going back home.
$1 million. How much is that in apples?
it just kind of leaves you thinking that's it. Apparently, it's not that it's a bad way to end the show. It actually feels like the right place to end it because who cares?
It's
about
very
the epilogue?
nihilistic.
But yeah, there we go. It's nihilistic.
Yeah.
There's kind of no hope left in there.
Even the pop star girlfriend
Kills herself.
I know in the manga she
Right.
actually kills herself, and it's alluded to heavily
In the anime. Yeah.
It's just that poor girl.
Yeah, she's really Harley Quinn. In many ways, she's Harley Quinn of that series.
Yes.
Because her boyfriend
That's
abuses her.
a fair assessment.
Her boyfriend abuses her, uses her. She would die for him, and he couldn't care less what happened to her unless it's for his purposes. And in the end, when he's gone, she's got nothing left. And that's a domestic abuse story right there that, honestly, is just...
Well, not even that. She was already infatuated with him in the first place before she even met him.
Yeah.
So she had this, like, she had already had him on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Which gave him the perfect opportunity to use her to the fullest.
Yeah, he already had the power without even trying to obtain it.
And now we're in another
And that's
topic.
the
All right.
and that's the game.
Thank you, everybody,
so
for
yeah.
watching, listening.
Absolutely. Who wants to end us out? Who wants to
Maine?
take us out?
Maine, won't you end us
Go
out?
ahead, Maine.
Oh, I felt... Did I not do the other one? All right.
You weren't here last time.
Oh, no, I meant like the other one before that. Okay. I'm terrible with these. Well, that's all, folks.
Thanks, guys, for Thanks, guys, for listening to the Power of God in Anime with all of your amazing 4 very attractive hosts. Join us next time when we will discuss silly songs with Larry.
Oh my god.
Probably not, though.
If we
All right,
can
guys,
say
thanks.
goodnight, Kevin. we will.
Thanks a lot, guys. Until next time, good luck. Train hard. That's what I say.
And
Take care.
be a good person.